At this, bring in Senator Rob Portman of Ohio, and I want to note, Mr. Portman he knows his stuff. He's a former OMB director and U.S. trade representative and a very clear-eyed, sober analysis of fiscal policy. Senator, welcome to the show. How's that for a great introduction, by the way?
What an intro. Larry, it is great to see you back in your old role. You're looking prosperous. Yesterday, I noticed you had a new suit. Today, you got a new tie. I mean, things are looking up for Larry Kudlow.
None of this is new. I'm still living off my government savings. But anyway, let's put that aside. So, in all seriousness, Rob, I'm hearing about continued unemployment insurance, continued direct mail of checks and so forth.
It's unbelievable.
Where does this stop? I mean, that's one point. And where's this going to go? Second point.
Well, I think you've pointed out something that's kind of scary about this whole process, which is it doesn't seem to be any concern among the Democrats as to the amount of money. So we're talking about $1.9 trillion. It's as if, it's just another 100 million or something we're going to spend. And it's scary because within that bill, $1.9 trillion, there is very little directly related to COVID. You said less than 10%. That would be all of the health care parts. By the way, there's only 1% of the $1.9 trillion that's devoted to vaccine development or vaccine distribution. The president just gave a press conference while we were talking a moment ago, while you were talking with Congresswoman Salazar, in which he said, you've got to pass this thing because it's so important for COVID-19 and the vaccines. Republicans are happy to provide more funding for vaccine development and distribution. In fact, that's in our alternative proposal that many of us, asked the administration to take a look at. That's not what's here. What's here is all kinds of other spending have nothing to do with COVID.
See, Senator, now it's like, okay, I mean, everything you said is right. There's no bipartisanship left and so forth, and it's vastly, vastly too expensive. But that's just the $1.9 trillion. Now, as I read this, these senators, but they're not alone. I think Mr. Schumer is very sympathetic. But most importantly, I think the Biden administration is very sympathetic. They're conjuring up this so-called infrastructure bill, but they're going to load into it all of this recurring stimulus, as it's politely told. Senator Wyden, I guess, leading the charge. Now, can you stop this? Or is this all going to be 50-50? You can only use reconciliation so many times.
Yeah, they'll have three bites at the apple, we're told, during these first 18 months, and the second one is likely to be infrastructure. Then it's about tax increases, I believe, Larry, which is another real problem because the economy was just going so great a year ago, and the tax relief and the regulatory reform and the energy independence was all working for us. So, yeah, I agree. I think what they're saying is that if a state's unemployment is not at a certain point, then you provide stimulus checks, which provides certain disincentives, doesn't it? So if a state doesn't open up, as an example, and therefore has higher unemployment, they'll get more money from the federal government. It in a sense, ought to be the other way around, that if states, get their act together and get people back to work, maybe they should be rewarded for that. So, yeah, it's part of a broader package. Now, let me just say again, on COVID-19, there was no reason to do this under what's called reconciliation, which just means you do it with 50 votes rather than 60. We've done this 5 times. Big bipartisan majorities in the last year. You were very involved. I negotiated with you on this. Next one is infrastructure. Well, infrastructure is something that is also bipartisan. Not the kind of infrastructure they're talking about with recurring payments, but with regard to roads and bridges and the build out of fiber optics, as an example, for more broadband coverage. I mean, these are things that we should be able to work on. If you can't work on these issues in a bipartisan way, then what can you work on? Certainly not health care or taxes or other issues. So I'm disappointed with the way this administration has gotten started. I had high hopes. I listened to the inaugural address and thought, gosh, this will be different. We're going to see a bipartisan mood here, and that just hasn't happened.
Senator, last point. The first guest on the first show that we had was our friend Steve Mnuchin, who is a great friend, but he's also a very good Treasury Secretary. I asked him about the stimulus package. This is to your point about the reconciliation. He said that he opposed reconciliation, that instead we should have a bipartisan deal just as we had during 2020. In particular, Rob, when you and I were sitting on the horseshoe of the Senate Finance Committee, remember, in March, and it's all night long and so forth, whatever. That worked. This stuff now is not going to work. I think the country is going to grow weary of it very soon.
Yeah, I do too. And there's an alternative here, which is for us to actually work together for some more sustainable policy and better policy. Because if you bring Republicans in, you're not going to get every Republican, you're not going to get every Democrat, but you're going to get more of the kind of middle ground approaches that are actually going to help do three things. One, get people back to work, get this economy moving, which is starting to happen anyway, by the way, with or without new stimulus.
Yep.
Second, to help get our kids back to school, very important. And third, of course, the fundamental of all this is fix the COVID problem. So getting the vaccinations out there, ensuring the therapies are there, ensuring that we're doing everything we can do on personal protective gear and so on. That's what we ought to be doing. And if we did that, I think even a few months from now, we'd be looking back and thinking, wow, this is great. We're out of the woods, the economy's back on track, and things are going well. So I'm hopeful that that's the approach we'll start to take.
We're moving in the wrong direction in Washington, D.C. I think we're moving in the right direction now around the country with the vaccine miracle. Herd immunity can't be too far away. But, guys, we'll leave it there. Senator Rob Portman.
Operation Warp Speed actually worked.
Yes, sir. And somebody's got to give Mr. Trump some credit for that at some point. Anyway. Rob Portman.
And you were part of it too, Larry. Thanks,
Appreciate
Larry.
it
Take
very,
care.
very much.
Good.
Breaking news now, by the way. President